Enough of the egos. We are here for another huge Manchester United debate. Mourinho, Woodward, Raiola, we're talking it all. You guys at home chose this topic today, so let's get straight into it. Joined today by three top lads. Scott's here, Abdullah's here, and Adam McKola is here as well. Right, we've got to start with Raiola, haven't we? We saw all them tweets on Twitter recently where I thought were quite disrespectful to the club and the fans, and obviously in particular a club legend. What do we need to do about this sort of agent and player power which is going on at the minute? Because it feels a little bit to me like agents have too much power, even at a club like Manchester United. Ferguson would have never taken this, I don't think. Adam, we'll come to you first.
I think when you look at it, it kind of feels, I think someone mentioned earlier, I think it was Scott, that it feels very similar to Stretford and Rooney. And I do kind of agree with that. But at the same time, this is Mino Raiola. And Fergie knew about this guy all along. He knew Paul Pogba was, when people say Fergie let Pogba go because he didn't think he was good enough, it was nothing to do with his talent. So Fergie kind of foresaw that this guy would be the clown that we are coming to see. But when people say he disrespected the club and he disrespected the fans, I find that a little bit baffling, because I seem to see in a lot of people that failed to read and comprehend what he was actually saying in those tweets. Look, before I get into it, I'm not defending it. This is not ideal. I do not want to see this going on at my club. It's embarrassing. But what he said in those two tweets was a defense of his player and his client in the face of criticism from an ex-footballer. When he mentioned if Paul Scholes was advised that he would want to sell Paul Pogba, oh yeah, we'd have sleepless nights getting a club for him. He wasn't saying, like, you know, oh, let's sell him now. He was saying Paul Scholes would want to sell him, so he's trying to criticize his intelligence. And I found it odd how many people didn't read that, and they were saying Pogba needs to come out and say that he wants to stay. And it's like it was clearly Raiola having a go at Paul Scholes. It was nothing to do with Manchester United, and unfortunately, it's a sideshow to an already circus that we're seeing at the club at the moment. That is what I feel this Raiola and Scholes thing is. It's a sideshow to the actual circus.
I was getting the vibe from those tweets that he was almost saying, like, he was casually mentioning Pogba leaving the club in a very sort of blasé way. I thought that was disrespectful in itself, though, because there's so many stories at the minute about him potentially leaving.
He said, if you were an advisor, you would tell Ed Woodward to sell Paul Pogba, and then he said we'd have sleepless nights trying to sell him. Like, obviously, you're not going to have sleepless nights selling Pogba. Everyone in the world knows that.
Yeah.
Would want him. And also, everyone knows it's a stupid decision to sell him. I don't get why. It's just basic comprehension. But anyway, forget that. Like, it's just unneeded, especially at a time when Manchester United aren't doing well. And I hate to say it, but this is starting to feel like Jose's last days at Chelsea, just without a title to show for it.
I know exactly what you're saying, mate. Abdullah, let's go to you then. How do we take back control over these agents? Whose responsibility is it to sort of, sort these guys out?
I think it stems down to the likes of Ed Woodward, who just seem to like be in control of everything. There's no one actually running the football side at the club. Again, Mourinho, I think he should be taking more control. I think he should be getting out there and obviously talking about Raiola. And you just can't be tweeting out things like that. Even if you think what you think about someone like Paul Scholes, you can't be outside tweeting like that, because United fans are always going to go absolutely mental. And obviously you've seen what's happened now on Twitter. Everyone's replying to him, or you might as well sell Pogba. Pogba needs to come out and speak about it. But it was really nothing to do with that. It was a personal issue, obviously, with Raiola and Paul Scholes because of Paul Scholes' comments. So in my opinion, Raiola shouldn't have come out and said that. But I do understand why he says that, because sometimes what Paul Scholes says has been unnecessary. And unfortunately, there's just no control in the way that these guys are speaking out in the media.
I think it's a shame as well, like that, because I think Scholesy isn't actually the worst. I think Scholesy lays into Jose in that a lot. But in terms of Paul Pogba, he's actually been quite complimentary about him a lot of times. And that's why I find it a little bit weird that he chose to go for Scholes rather than, say, a Souness or someone else that's always going for Paul Pogba. But a club legend coming out for someone that's currently at your club is kind of like the whole Ozil kind of thing, where his agent's coming out to defend him. So the club have made their bet, though, innit? Don't you reckon? Like, with Jorge Mendes, with Raiola, we've just been using these agents to our benefit.
I think the thing is with like the likes
So now
of
they're
Mendes,
using us.
I was speaking with my mate about this yesterday, but with Mendes, he seems to look more on the interest of the player. And I think that's what he done with De Gea. I don't think he ever pushed Ronaldo in 2007 when supposedly Ronaldo wanted to leave and then waited 2 years because Ferguson thought that was the better option for Ronaldo and the club. And it's always a lot smoother with the likes of Mendes. Raiola's he's always got problems with him. He always brings a lot of package, and that's why Ferguson clearly didn't want to deal with him.
Seems like he wants the drama in a way, Raiola, at times. One thing that I do worry about a little bit is that Raiola and Pogba are quite good friends. I mean, I know they posted, loads of pictures with each other on Instagram. I think it was over last summer, really, more than this summer, obviously, with the World Cup being on. Scott, do you worry that Raiola is being literally Paul Pogba's mouthpiece here and actually saying what Pogba thinks?
I mean, I think we have to start from the beginning. First of all, when you talk about control. Ed Woodward, nobody's going to have control, not in the days of social media. That's just not going to happen. So we just need to nip that in the bud. In terms of Raiola, I mean, we instantly don't like the guy. The reason why we don't like the guy is we see clubs, for instance, like Notts County, 150 years old, nearly extinct, begging for money. And we see this guy pick up 40 million to be a middleman. So we automatically just don't like the guy. And he doesn't say much. And I agree with Adam with what he said is when you look really into it, I mean, was it really that bad? I mean, I personally think he picked on Scholes because by picking on Scholes, he would create, obviously, the most controversy. Because if he just said Souness, we'd all go, yeah, we agree with you. But by saying Scholes, we'd all react the way we did. And we did react in a very, very ridiculous way, me personally too. I just get angry, like I said, just by seeing his face, I just see this parasite. I just don't like the guy. And again, we just don't like agents because we see so much money going out of the game into individuals. I mean, this started with, I forgot his name, but Tevez and Mascherano's agent. Started from there. When we found out about that deal, it was ridiculous. And then he moved Tevez to City. But what's happening at Manchester United now in terms of agents and in terms of player power has been going on at every single other club. And we have taken advantage of this for years. And it's now happening to us. We're having players who are forcing or trying to force moves or trying to force bigger contracts. And we're just at the moment reacting. But the reality is this has been happening to clubs like West Ham. This has been happening to clubs like, Everton. Even Liverpool, Barcelona have done it how many times with Liverpool, and now it's happening to us. And the reality is we're just not used to this. We're Manchester United. We think we're basically the richest club in the world. Everyone wants to play for us, and the reality is players have so much power, and they have a 10-year lifespan. They want to earn as much money as they can within that 10 years. So that's why we're in a situation that we are. And again, going back to Raiola, I agree with what Adam said. It wasn't that bad is what it said. It's the fact that he had a go at Scholes and the fact that Scholes is completely loved and we all reacted. If he was standing in front of us, it would have been violent.
Very interesting and sort of a self-aware point there, Scott. I quite like that it's been happening to lots of other clubs around, and it's only until it's actually happening to us that we thought, hang on a minute, this is out of order. We're very entitled as Manchester United fans, I think sometimes it has to be said. Right, let's go on to the next point. Let's talk about actually who is in charge at the club, because I did think this, like in every other industry in the world, you think you've got someone who answers to someone else at the company, then you've got that person who answers to someone else. Everyone has a boss, essentially. But I was thinking this about Man United the other day. Who is actually in charge of the gaff? Who is the head honcho here who people answer to? Because I don't have a clue. It just seems to be lots of various different people scrabbling for power. So Abdullah, tell me, who is in charge at Manchester United, or who should be actually in charge at Manchester United at the minute?
It shouldn't be really anyone with full power at Manchester United. And unfortunately, most of the power's in Ed Woodward's hands, in my opinion. When it comes to transfer decisions, off a businessman, he's the one saying which signing is a commercial signing, which signings we shouldn't make. He isn't getting the signings that Mourinho thinks that we will improve the side with and try to challenge the title for. He's getting those signings to get that cash in commercially, and eventually they will notice that because you need to win titles to stay up there as a big club, and he's taking advantage of what United have created in the past and obviously making money off that. Because of the name that we are, he can just buy a big name signing like Pogba, even if Mourinho didn't want him, and make some money off him commercially. And unfortunately, it just feels like Ed Woodward just has so much power right now at Manchester United. And that's why a director of football should have been there ages ago. Losing someone like David Gill was big as well around Alex Ferguson's time. And it's just a whole heap of mess, in my opinion, right now. And someone needs to take a bit of control off him. Some other people at the club, like Mourinho, the actual manager who knows how the players play, has to have decisions over transfers as well. Obviously, Mourinho has part to blame, obviously, with performances on the pitch, with his tactics at times. But it's the fact that Ed Woodward has so much power because the Glazers trust him because of how much money he's bringing in, and it shouldn't be like that.
The Glazers as well, they're not like a Roman Abramovich who go to every game, who are seen around the club, are, are actively involved in wanting to see more. They don't give a shit what is happening at Old Trafford. They don't care who's enjoying the football, how many fans are in the ground. All they care about is their balance sheet. They're seeing what's coming into their shareholders, to them. And that's all they realistically do not care about the football. That is probably the last thing they even hear of, or the last thing they even ask about, because Manchester United will still make money. And it's just sad times. They're not going to ever get rid of Ed Woodward. Ed Woodward is too good at his job, which is making money. And until he stops doing that for them, they're not going to see him the way we see him, as someone that is very good at doing his job commercially, but as a football man, he's out of his depth. He's out of his depth. And it's a sad time, man.
I'm going to be completely honest, right?
The problem at the moment, like, it's not just the manager. Yes, you can blame the manager. Like Abdullah said, his tactics at times are awful, most of the time. In fact, like, we've had 2 years, it looks like we don't train together. This is not befitting of a Manchester United team or a Mourinho team. And it kind of feels like it could be a broken flush. We don't know yet. He could turn around and win the league. Who knows what could happen? But there's too many problems going on. So, like, even if you get rid of Mourinho, you've still got Woodward influencing whoever the new manager is, probably preventing him from doing his job. So then you got to ask, like, what kind of manager do we need next? Or, like, because it has to be a good fit to the egos and the characters that we've got around the club. Yeah. You can't get a man like Mourinho or
we are going to talk a little bit more about the actual manager's position in a bit, mate, to be honest. At the minute, it's just more like the board responsibility and, Ed Woodward and how much control he should have over the situation and, maybe even the potential of hiring someone else for a position. Scott, what were you saying? What do you want to say about this, mate? About Ed Woodward and how much control he has over Manchester United at the minute? How much control he should have as well?
Listen, we're a business, and the Glazers are a family business. No one mentioned the fact that the Glazers have given Tampa Bay Buccaneers $200 million this year. No one's mentioned that. No one's mentioned that they have a lot of investments that they need to support in terms of their business. So why haven't Manchester United not spent any money? It's just not our turn. That's it. They're happy with fourth. They believe with the squad that we'll finish fourth. And the reality is we're just part of a business model, and it's horrific. It is absolutely horrific. I mean, I will talk about, we needed a centre-back. Everyone said it. We all needed it. The only one position where we said that is a must, absolute must, and we didn't spend the money. And the reason we didn't spend the money is because Ed Woodward probably didn't have the funds to give because those funds were allocated elsewhere. It's just business, and it's a horrible thing for fans. But the reality is it was Tampa Bay Buccaneers' turn this year. They've got the $200 million. We haven't got anything to spend. And unfortunately, it's just a fact of life.
It's shocking, isn't it, that what actually happens on the pitch to some of the people very high up at the club is probably the least important thing to them. It is shocking. What a sport football is at the minute. Right, we'll be back in a bit. Hopefully a little bit more optimism. What are we talking about next? Oh, the manager's position. Never mind. Right, we'll see you in a sec. We're talking about the manager's position. Jose Mourinho in the huge Manchester United debate this week on Full Time Devils. It's all about the egos. Enough of the egos. So let's go on to Jose. We saw a transfer window, obviously, where he wasn't backed fully, I think a lot of people would say. But what about his position at the club now going into, the rest of the season? Scott, let's start with you here, mate. What are your opinions on Jose at the moment?
I mean, for me, every time he's been successful with any club that he's worked with, he's had some of the world's best defenders. I mean, that's the reality. If you look at the teams he had with Chelsea, if you look at the teams he had with Real Madrid, Inter Milan, Porto, he had Costa. Inter Milan, he had the Brazilian guy, I forgot his name, and obviously Ramos. Chelsea, he had Terry, and people like that. Look who we've got. We've got a kid in Lindelof. He needs time. We've got Bailey, who's injury prone and obviously needs a lot more match fitness. But then you've got Smalling and Jones. And we've all said that he needed back in there. So it's very hypocritical of anybody in this debate who's going to turn around and have a go at Jose, saying that his style of play. But he needs defenders who he trusts. And the reality is he wasn't backed. He got Fred. I think he's a good person to bring in. He's still got Matic to come back, Pereira to come back. But for me, Ed Woodward shafted him completely in the summer. And my worry is there's no one to replace Jose Mourinho. He's one of the best managers in the world. He's the only manager who has actually beaten Pep Guardiola. He's the only manager who's actually done it. So for us to turn around and say Jose Mourinho out, considering that he finished second last year, considering that he hasn't been backed, I just think is stupid. And again, we have players that we rely on, like Martial, like Pogba, who just aren't performing. And people go, oh, that's Jose's fault. Really? Does he have to tell them how to play football? Does he have to tell them to play with desire? No, he doesn't. He's stupid. Play with desire. Do you think Alex Ferguson pulled Roy Keane aside and said, oh, by the way, Roy, can you give it a bit extra today? No, not at all. Put the shirt on, play for the fans, work hard. That's all we expect. And the fact is they're not doing it. And who's going to be blamed? Jose Mourinho. What's going to happen? We'll end up firing the guy. And who will we bring in? Oh, God knows. Arsene Wenger, probably.
Adam mentioned a little bit earlier on about it starting to feel like his last few months at Chelsea, his last year at Chelsea.
Yeah.
And you've said, that he is one of the best managers in the world. And I think I agree with that in a way because the highs are so high. But with Mourinho, the lows are really low as well. And some of the people maybe wanting him out the club want that to happen before this escalates. You know what I mean? And he fully does completely... Well, the club completely implodes on himself because Jose's coming out and putting himself before the club saves his own back.
Yeah, but again, he's been undermined by the players. He's been undermined by Pogba. He's been undermined by Ed Woodward.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if he is going to go, then the club needs to make a decision. But this isn't Jose's fault. Absolutely not.
Adam, you're shaking your head. Tell me what's wrong. Why is it Jose's fault?
I don't know how you can excuse Jose Mourinho from any blame. You got a lot. So you mentioned Pogba and Martial there, but their moods and their whole spirit is almost dictated by this manager. And you say you can't tell them how to play football. We play like we don't train together. We play like a bunch of lads that meet on a Saturday and have a kick about. Bunch of talented lads at that. But we don't look like we train together. Is he a football manager? Are we supposed to see an improvement in our team over 2 years? If anything, our team hasn't improved from the first year when we won the Europa League and the League Cup, despite the fact that our team is better. This team right now is better than the team Fergie left us. Facts only. And when you look at the squad that we've got going forward, at least, we've got to get more out of that. And I think, look, Jose Mourinho is not 100% to blame for everything that is going on. Like Scott said, and I agree with him, we saw a number of positions that we needed to sign players in. The board didn't back him, and you feel like the board would have backed him if there was that more fanciful name there available that would bring in lucrative commercial deals along with it. But they didn't. Anyway, forget that. What we have got here, and football management is so layered. It's like an onion, like Shrek. You gotta get everything right. You can't this fly, man. You can't be
have a bath, you smelly
You can't be like, your press conferences come into consideration, your interviews, your training sessions, your tactics, your style of play, like everything comes into play and helps your players like decide whether they want to play for you or not. And it seems like a lot of these players at the moment, from the evidence that we've got, are saying, I ain't feeling what this guy's doing. And I can understand, because I ask everybody watching this right now, if you were not a Manchester United fan, would you want to play for Manchester United under Jose Mourinho? The answer's no. Like, the only thing I feel holding Rashford there from doing what Marshall wants to do is the fact he's a United fan. And I think a lot of these problems that we face are Jose Mourinho's fault. But I feel like it's kind of like a knock-on effect. You've got a board pissing the manager off. The manager gets angry. He reacts, takes it out on some of his players. But we've seen this happen in the past. We've seen it happen at Chelsea, Hazard and Fabregas and Costa. There was banners up. These lot are snakes. These lot are rats. Yo, they won the league the year later. Like, I don't know. It's a weird one. I think Jose just got this habit of just destroying things everywhere he goes. And I hope that's not the case this time around. I really hope it isn't. But it does look like history's repeating itself. And I find it weird that whenever Pogba seems upset, everyone wants to say, oh, why don't he act like he wants to be here? Why don't he come out and say he wants to be here? Why don't he do this? Why don't he do that? Your manager's doing exactly the same things. Why don't he act like he wants to be here? Why don't he come out and say, I want to be this manager. I want to do this job. Because right now I get the impression he doesn't want to be here.
It's the classic Jose thing of almost putting himself before the club that he's at. And I'm sort of under the impression, and I still am under the impression as well at Manchester United, that he has a bit more respect for this club than he has a lot of his past clubs, and it won't go that way and it won't totally implode on itself. But we'll wait and see. Abdullah, can I just
interject?
Go on, Scott.
Sorry, just interject. I mean, you took, what about Pogba's comments? Oh, I turned up and I wasn't in the right frame of mind. You know, are we just going to dismiss that?
He also mentioned something about which seemed telling. Look, I don't agree with it. As a fan, I want to see every player put in 110% every game, regardless of who the manager is, regardless of the tactics, regardless of. It's not an ideal world, man. Like, you've got to. Jose's been backtracking in the last few weeks, saying he's the best thing since sliced bread, and he's captain, and he's this and he's that now. But what about the 12 months that went before it? When you were questioning his commitment and you were questioning this and you were questioning that, like, that's going to have an effect on your players. You can't send these messages out to your players and then when they get pissed off, act surprised. Oh, why is he pissed off? I've just made him captain. Yeah, but it's like taking a slapping from your parents and then they give you what you want. It's like you're still going to be sitting there crying with ice cream on your lap. Do you know what I mean? Is that
some emotional trauma that Adam's getting off his chest here? Seriously.
Like, nah, it's a mess at the moment, man. But I find people that blame people like Pogba and that, they are a result of what's going on around them. I don't think they are the cause of that problem.
Yeah, maybe still expect a certain level of professionalism from players playing at Manchester United, especially when they're being given the captain's armband in games. Abdullah, let's go to you dead quick, mate. Let's talk about just dead quick on Mourinho. Do you think you'll ever see him put in the club before himself, or do you reckon that ship has sailed?
I just don't think that's Jose Mourinho. Obviously, you know what you're going to get with him. But the reason I think he's still at United is because he wanted this job for years. I think since his Porto days, he's probably always had it in the back of his mind that he wants to be at United at one point, and he doesn't want to leave until he wins either a European Cup or a league title, which in my opinion isn't going to happen under him because of many reasons. One of them, which I'm going to go to, was the last game. You can see in that second half, no one on that pitch wanted to play for him. And yes, that's down to the players as well. I'm not blaming Mourinho there. But if you're not getting the response that you're getting when you're doing your halftime team talk in the dressing room from the players on the pitch, there was no urgency. I said this with Steve the other day on the show. I said there was no urgency even from throw-ins. We'd get a throw-in and be passing it about, and then there was just no one really wanting it. It's almost the players were just passing the game out, and he was so frustrating to see that. So he isn't getting the response on the pitch. I remember when Jesse Lingard and Marcus Rashford came on, there was a bit more energy from them, and you can almost see which players wanted it that day, and it's very unfortunate. Like Scott said earlier, you'd never see Roy Keane say, oh, I'm going to do a bit more today or whatever, or Fergie having to ask him to do a bit more on that day, they'd always put 110% in. And unfortunately, we're not getting that from the players. And if they don't trust the manager doesn't trust them, then I just think that's a toxic energy right there. And the other thing is, Ed Woodward, again, there's no level of trust between him and Mourinho, because Mourinho was asking for the likes of Perisic, Maguire and Alderweireld. Then Ed Woodward's going, but they're not going to bring us in money commercially. So he'd rather offer 100 million on Varane than get someone like Alderweireld for 60 million because of how much money we'll make commercially. And that shouldn't be the way of thinking when you're buying your players. It should be who's able to play in that position, who's going to bring you the titles, and not who's going to bring you money in commercially. And like I said, there's just no trust between anyone at the club. Everyone's running with their own thoughts. And because of that, in my opinion, Mourinho needs to walk.
That's football only. Yeah, football only. Jose has signed 2 centre-halves, 3 central midfielders, Sanchez and Lukaku, yeah. We had Martial, Rashford, Lingard, Mata, all these guys. We had Herrera. We had the best goalkeeper in the world. We haven't got great fullbacks, but we had a potential one. Yeah. And the football needs to be better than this.
Yeah, I do agree.
So what you want to say, this is why we can't just blame Woodward. We can't just blame, because ultimately, what the players we have got, we are not getting the maximum out of any of them. The only players we're getting 100% out of are the ones we don't want to be here.
All right, then, nearly time for the end of this huge debate on Full-Time Devils today. The enough of the egos debate, talking Raiola, talking Mourinho, talking Woodward. Adam, let's do the 30-second round with you first. 30 seconds. Try and sort of sum up the big problems in the club at the minute and all the egos. Have you had enough of them all? Go.
Ultimately, Raiola is putting his player first, but we need that fat clown to just shut up for a minute, because Manchester United are not in a great position at the moment. We're not, and we need to focus on football. Ed Woodward, back your manager or sack your manager. Jose Mourinho, you need to fix up a little bit. You're not devoid of any blame in this situation. You really do need to fix up a little bit, but you need to feel like you're being backed by your club. And at the moment, it doesn't. So it's a mess. And
that's it.
You can't see it getting any better.
Oh, lovely. I always feel really enthused after talking to Adam about football. Abdullah, let's get your 30 seconds now then. Have you had enough of the egos at Manchester United? How do we fix it? Go.
The problem that we have right now is everyone at the club is putting themselves before the club pretty much. I think other than Ed Woodward, because obviously he's running the show and that's how he's going to get his money, he'll be caring about what goes on. But the likes of Mourinho, it's all about him and how his career ends. He wants to win a title. He wants to win a Champions League before he leaves. Raiola, you see, he shouldn't have been doing those tweets there. Obviously, there's a disconnection between everyone at the club. There's no trust between anyone, like I said. And right now, no one's putting the club first. And that's what we didn't see under Ferguson, unfortunately.
We're done. Nice one. Good point. Good point. Scott, 30 seconds. Have you had enough of the egos at Manchester United? How do we sort it all out? Go!
Well, the spotlight is on us 24/7 because we're the only thing that matters in football today. And obviously we have all the egos in terms of Ed Woodward, Jose Mourinho, and we have a team full of snowflakes. How do we fix this? I don't know. Am I sick of it? Of course we are. Going quickly on Raiola, no one's going to slag off agents from the journalism side because that's where journalists get their information from. So we're just going to have to put up with it till we completely implode and turn into the Yankees.
Done. Oh, what a positive debate it's been today. It's been great. You know what? You've all made some really good points today. And, we obviously bring up the 3 names, really, Mourinho, Woodward and Raiola when we're talking about the egos at the club at the minute. And I think the truth is, they're all in the wrong in some way. And that is why Manchester United are in the position that we're in at the minute. I need to choose a winner from this debate and who I think has basically put across the most good points. I agree with a lot of the things that you've all been saying, to be honest. And I think Adam's got his points across very well as well. Abdullah, but I like Scott going in on the Glazers a little bit. So I'm going to give it to Scott today. But really appreciate you watching this debate today on Full-Time Devils. We do these huge debates all the time about various different topics. And you can vote on them as well about what we actually talk about on these debates with loads of different people on as well. And also, don't forget, you've got the fan phone-in happening 6 o'clock every single Thursday here on Full-Time Devils. Go on, what you plugging? What you saying, Adam?
I'm back on the radio.
Oh, yeah, why are they letting you do it and not me?
Coming for you, Gaz. I am coming for you.
Watch out, Signal 1. The people of Stoke won't know what's hit him. Right, yeah, you've also got This Week at Man United coming soon, which is my spot, so you can see me there. Right, all right, see you in a bit. Laters.